I'm going to be honest. This is very, very important for the Dallas Wings because there is a obvious pick because you're not going to be great. Like, it depends. Sorry. There are two ways you go about this.
All right, you've got it. The Dallas Wings just hit the jackpot in the 2026 WNBA draft lottery, locking up that #1 overall pick. Now, here's why this isn't just a big deal. It's a franchise-altering moment. They're not just getting a top player. They're getting what looks to be the very last elite modern-style big prospect available in women's basketball for at least the next 3 years. The move they make with this selection is going to determine if this team actually competes for titles or if they completely fumble. Yet another generational talent. They have exactly 2 ways to go from here, and honestly, only one of them truly makes any sense.
Sense long term.
They draft AZ Fudd as this complementary piece. Like, let's just say hypothetically, you manage to use the cap space and convince players we're going UConn. We're going UConn. And you manage to convince, you just go, you know what, Tina Charles, you come in as our backup. You're going to be our backup center. Fee, Stewie, Azare. We can afford every one of yous. We can afford all 3 of yous.
So, let's really get into the nitty-gritty of their choices. With this #1 pick, the Wings can go in one of 2 directions. First option, they can make a gigantic splash in free agency, convincing several all-star level players to sign with Dallas. Then they would draft a 7 to be the perfect complementary player to help them win a championship right away. The second option is to face the reality that free agency might not go their way. Draft Olivia Miles instead, and commit to building a long-term championship nucleus around her and Paige Buckers. Those are really the only 2 realistic paths they can take. And the path they choose will be dictated entirely by what plays out between right now and draft night this coming April.
In April.
With this weird free agency. Look, it's in Dallas, but I mean, it doesn't really matter where it is. Where it's going to be Connecticut and Dallas. Then you draft AZ. Any scenario where they're trying to build, you take Awafam. And Awafam with Paige Buckers is going to be, like, long-term, the only guard big combo that can compete with Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston.
Let me explain why this choice matters so much. A combination of Olivia Miles and Paige Buckers is the only guard and big duo currently in college basketball that has a realistic shot of one day going toe-to-toe with the powerhouse of Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. I'm not talking about right away, not in their first year, but maybe 3 or 4 years into the future when both of them are finishing up their initial rookie deals. That pairing could seriously be in the hunt for championships. Now, Paige still has some developing to do before she's at the level of rookie of Caitlin Clark. And Olivia has a lot of work to put in before she's anywhere near Aaliyah Boston's impact. But the potential is absolutely there. The groundwork for something special has been laid.
That's the best thing to do. When's the last time a WNBA team? When is the last WNBA team that won a title with a 6'7" center that couldn't move? When was that started? I'm just trying to think of bigs. 2021 Chicago Sky. I know they had Azare on their team, but I'm trying to think who's their starting center. Oh, it was Candace Parker, was it? Did Candace Parker start at center?
Okay, let's address the massive elephant in the room. Dominique Malanga. There is a whole group of fans out there who believe the Wings should take her with that #1 selection. I have to be completely blunt about this. The modern game of basketball has simply passed by players with her skill set. She stands at 6'7". She lacks the lateral quickness to defend at a high level, and her performance as a senior has been surprisingly mediocre. Just think about it. When is the last time a WNBA team won a title with a classic slow-footed 7-footer playing the starting center position. The 2021 Chicago Sky had Candace Parker at center, who is a mobile and versatile player that can stretch the floor. And you can be sure the 2020 Seattle Storm didn't win with that kind of player either.
But basically, these Lauren Betts players, they know better. They just got off McCown. Yeah, like I'm glad. I'm glad people are starting to figure this shit out. That like, it's not that Lauren Betts is bad, and it's not like she has the Tiara McCown attitude issues. It's that the game's moved past Lauren Betts. Not only that, she's been so average as a senior. She has been so average.
The big problem with Malonga is not that she is an untalented player. The issue is that her style of basketball is completely outdated for where the WNBA is today. To win championships in the modern era, you need bigs who can switch on to smaller players defensively, who can step outside the paint, and who can create offensive spacing. When you see people bring up her recent 5-for-5 shooting night against Southern University as some kind of proof of her dominance, they are completely ignoring the full picture. Southern is not some powerhouse program. They're just Southern. They're located in Baton Rouge, and they play in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Using that performance as evidence of her elite ability is like praising a heavyweight boxing champion for knocking out a total amateur.
But if we're being honest, like, there's only two ways you go with this pick. You go with if you don't bring in all these incredible free agents to win a title immediately, you bring in Awafam, because Awafam is the best prospects here. If you don't, or if you want to go develop a duo with this draft, you draft Awafam, because I'm going to be honest, there's no center in 2027 that's even close to Awafam.
So if the Wings strike out in free agency,
if Dallas can't land multiple all-star free agents, if the top players decide to re-sign with the teams they're already on, then Olivia Miles immediately becomes the no-brainer selection. And this is the part you cannot miss. There isn't a center in the 2027 draft who is even in the same stratosphere as Olivia's talent. There is no center prospect in 2028 either, except for Sarah Strong, and the Wings are not going to be bad enough to get the #1 pick again to select her. And from everything we've seen in the high school recruiting world, there is no big coming in 2029 that is even remotely close to Olivia's level. This is the moment. This is their one chance to lock down an elite, modern big for the foreseeable future.
modern bit.
You can count them on one hand. And modern bigs that are capable of playing in the WNBA and have the size, and have a huge size, there is, in my opinion, like, Aaliyah is 6'3", but she's got enough size. I do think she's got enough size for it. So if you're talking about true modern bigs, it's like Aaliyah, that don't have to adapt. Aaliyah, Aja.
So let's really define what a modern big actually is in today's WNBA. You can probably list them all on one hand. We're talking about players who possess the size to be a rim protector, the quickness to switch out and defend guards, and the offensive skill set to space the court. Aaliyah Boston, at 6'3", has just enough size and incredible mobility. Ajaja Wilson is basically the platonic ideal of this player type. Brianna Stewart functions as a kind of hybrid between a wing and a big. Nabisa Collier absolutely fits this description. You could potentially see Aaliyah Edwards getting there if she can make her perimeter game a lot more consistent. That is pretty much the entire list. It is not very long, and Olivia Miles is projected to be the next name on it.
Be on it.
There are examples of players that could be, but like, there are so few. There are so few, like, players in the entire NBA or in WNBA that are Awafam. There's a lot of 45. Not 45. Geez, there is significantly more 40% 3-point shooters.
Then you have the group of players who have the potential to grow into modern bigs. If Camila Cardozo can develop a much more reliable three-point shot, she might get there. If Ozzy Ford could add a stronger interior game, she could be in the conversation. Although she is truly more of a wing player, you can find examples of athletes who might eventually get into this category. But the number of prospects who come into the WNBA already having all of these skills is unbelievably tiny. And that is precisely what makes this particular draft selection so incredibly valuable.
Look, I think we'll know who's going to go number one based on free agency. I don't think we're going to know who's going to be number one based on this pick. We're going to see how they do in free agency. Like, if we see Dallas striking out on the stars, if we see most people going back to their normal teams or to their current teams, then absolutely we'll see them going for Alwafam. Like, what they're not going to do is make a bunch of strikeout in free agency and then make a win now move in out AZ Foot. But they might make a win now pick if they do well in free agency.
Now, here is where the entire free agency situation changes the game. If Dallas can somehow pull it off and persuade multiple All-Stars to move to Texas, if they miraculously land someone like Brianna Stewart, or Aja Wilson, or Nafisa Collier, then the whole equation gets flipped on its head. In that world, you absolutely draft Aji Ford. You bring on a player who shoots 40% from three-point range, who can thrive playing without the ball, create space for your stars, and contribute to winning from day one. You'd be putting together a win-now super team. But that plan only works if every single free agency domino falls in their favor perfectly. And we are going to know the answers to those questions long before draft night arrives. The simple truth is this: we're not going to figure out who Dallas will take number one based on these lottery results. We are going to know based on what they accomplish in free agency over the next couple of months. If we see Dallas fail to land any of the big name stars, if we watch most of the top players either stay with their current teams or sign in other cities, then the path becomes incredibly clear. They are taking Olivia Miles. They are building for a window that opens 3 to 4 years from now, not for next season. But if we see Dallas making huge signings, if they somehow convince a couple of All-Stars that Texas is the new destination, then Aji Ford becomes the logical pick to complement that roster. You cannot strike out completely in free agency and then turn around and make a win-now draft selection. That is how a franchise wastes a generational player. That is how you find yourself with a completely confused team that can't compete in the present and has no real foundation for the future. And what Dallas cannot, under any circumstances, do is draft Dominique Malanga. If they pick her with the first selection, they might as well hang a banner that says they are stuck in 2010. The league has completely moved on from traditional, immobile centers who are liabilities on defense and clog the paint on offense. The top teams just do not win like that anymore. The proof is everywhere you look. Think about the incredible position the Wings are in right now. They have money to spend. They have the number one pick. Pretty much every team in the league is facing massive free agency questions because so many stars are up for grabs. This is the most wide open the WNBA has felt in a very long time. Literally any franchise could make a run at a title next year if they play their cards right. Dallas has all the assets they need to make a huge move. The only question is whether they can actually get these deals done. And that brings us right back to the Olivia Miles versus Aji Ford debate. Olivia represents patience. She stands for building something that can last, something that could compete for multiple titles over a 5-year stretch. Aji represents a sense of urgency. She stands for trying to win it all immediately, with veteran stars and just praying that championship window stays open long enough to be meaningful. Neither strategy is wrong, but they demand entirely different rosters. You can't draft Olivia and then put a bunch of aging veterans on 1-year deals around her. And you can't draft Aji and then fail to sign established stars, leaving her as the top player on a team that's rebuilding. Your draft pick has to align with your overall plan. What makes Olivia Miles so unique as a prospect is that she's not just a modern big who can do it all defensively and stretch the floor. She is also a player who can develop right alongside Paige Bueckers. They are both coming into the league in the same year. They will both be on 4-year rookie contracts. Their career arcs match up perfectly. By the time they are both 25 or 26 years old, and entering their prime, they could be the core of a dynasty. Now compare that to drafting Aji and trying to win a title with players who are already 29, 30 or 31. You might squeeze one championship out of that group if you're lucky, but then those veterans start to decline or they leave for another team, and you're stuck with Aji as your lone franchise player without a roster that is built around her strengths. That is the exact recipe for becoming stuck in perpetual mediocrity. The other element here is just how rare her position is. There are way more elite guards in women's basketball than there are elite modern bigs. If you pass on Olivia Miles right now, when is your next shot to draft a player with her unique blend of size, mobility, and skill? The 2027 draft has nobody close. The 2028 draft has Sarah Strong, but Dallas will not be bad enough to get the #1 pick again. And the 2029 draft is just too far out to know for sure. This could be a once-in-a-decade kind of opportunity. Contrast that with the guard position. You see multiple 40% three-point shooters coming into the league every single year. You can find ball handlers, shot creators, and defensive stoppers. The guard spot has depth. You can get quality guards in the middle of the first round, in the second round, or even as undrafted players. But truly elite bigs, they are incredibly rare. And when you get a chance to draft one, you have to do it. So the question for Dallas is, what do they value more? The shot to win a title right away with a team built around veterans and Aji Fed, or the chance to build something that can last with Olivia Miles and Paige Buckers as their cornerstone? Because those are the only two real choices on the table. Anything else is just wishful thinking or a complete failure by the organization. Keep your eyes on what happens over these next 3 months. Watch where the big free agents sign. Watch to see if Dallas can actually convince star players to come to Texas. That is going to tell you everything you need to know about who they are taking with that #1 pick. And it's going to tell you if this franchise is actually serious about putting together a championship team, or if they're just content to stay in the middle of the pack. Because look, the #1 pick is a massive gift. It's a chance to completely change the direction of your franchise. But that only happens if you make the right call, and only if you match your draft pick to the plan you actually have, not the plan you wish you had. Dallas has an opportunity to do something really special here. They have the money, they have the pick. They have the chance. The only question left is whether they will be smart enough to actually capitalize on it. So, what do you guys think Dallas ought to do? Should they push all their chips in on free agency and draft AZ Food as the final piece for a win-now team? Or should they accept their situation, draft Olivia Miles, and build a championship core with Paige Buckers that can dominate for the next decade? Let me know what you think in the comments, because this one move is going to shape the Wings franchise for at least the next 5 years. And if you want more WNBA draft breakdowns as we get closer to April, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be analyzing every single prospect, every team's draft needs, and every potential trade scenario from now until the draft.